Story 1. The Attendant's Final Ticket Punch. The validation machine should have rejected it. The ticket was dated March 14, 1957, 32 years before this station was built. But when I fed it through, the machine punched a hole clean through the center and somewhere deep in the mechanisms, I heard something that sounded like satisfaction. The passenger smiled at me, rain dripping from a coat that looked wrong in a way I couldn't quite place, and asked which platform for the northbound line. I pointed. They walked toward track 7, and when I blinked, they were standing at the yellow safety line, turned back toward me, waiting. Not for a train. For me. I've worked the night shift at Millerton Station for 11 years. The title on my badge reads Station Attendant, but most nights I'm little more than a custodian of emptiness. After the 11:47 p.m. departure, the platforms drain of commuters like water through a sieve, leaving only the fluorescent hum and the distant rumble of trains passing through tunnels beneath other parts of the city. My duties are simple: monitor the platforms, assist any stragglers, lock the outer gates at 1:30 a.m., and file the shift report before the maintenance crew arrives at 4:00. The station itself is unremarkable. Built in 1989 to service the northern residential expansion, Millerton never achieved the traffic volume the city planners anticipated. It's a 2-platform station with modest architecture, gray concrete, yellowing tiles, aging signage that no one bothers to update. The ticket booth where I spend most of my shift is a small glass enclosure near the main entrance, equipped with a validation machine that still uses the old punch card system, though most commuters have switched to electronic passes years ago. On the night of October 17th, it rained. Not the gentle autumn rain that taps politely against windows, but the kind that hammers down in sheets, turning the station entrance into a waterfall and filling the air with the smell of wet concrete and metal. By 11:30, the platform was empty except for 2 college students waiting for the last train, hunched over their phones and ignoring each other. They boarded at 11:47 exactly, and the train pulled away, red taillights dissolving into the tunnel's throat. I was alone. I returned to the booth and began the closing checklist. The validation machine needed its nightly count, a mechanical holdover from decades past that corporate refused to replace. I was recording the punch totals in my logbook when I heard footsteps on the platform stairs. Slow, deliberate, the kind of footsteps that echo too long in empty spaces. I looked up. A figure was descending the stairs from street level, silhouetted against the harsh white light of the entrance. They moved with an odd, measured pace, as if uncertain of each step. Rain ran off their coat in streams, pooling on the stairs behind them. "Station's closing," I called through the booth speaker. "Last train's already left." The figure continued down. As they stepped into the fluorescent light, I got my first clear look at them. Middle-aged, pale, wearing a dark overcoat that looked heavy and old-fashioned, the kind with a wide collar and brass buttons. Their hair was slicked back from the rain, and their face had a waxy quality. Skin stretched too tight over bone. They approached the booth and reached into their coat pocket. "I need to validate this," they said. Their voice was flat, neither warm nor cold, but somehow wrong, like a recording played at the wrong speed. They placed a ticket on the counter. It was a paper ticket. Not the thermal printed kind we use now, but thick cardstock, yellowed with age, edges soft from handling. The print was faded but legible. Millerton Station, northbound, single journey. The date stamp in the corner read March 14th, 1957. I stared at it. This can't be valid. This station didn't exist in 1957. "I need to validate it," they repeated with the exact same inflection. Their eyes didn't blink. My training dictated I call for assistance in situations involving suspicious items or individuals. but something about the interaction felt less like a confrontation and more like a test. I picked up the ticket carefully, feeling the weight of it. It smelled of dust and something else, something mineral like the air in deep tunnels. "Where did you get this?" "I need to validate it." The repetition unnerved me. I glanced at the validation machine, the old punch card model from 1989, original to the station's construction. It shouldn't work with a ticket this old. The sizing would be wrong, the thickness incompatible. But I fed it through. The machine accepted it. The mechanisms engaged with a series of clicks that sounded louder than usual, more purposeful. The punch descended and pierced the ticket with a clean hole. The validation stamp printed across the back. Millerton Station, valid for travel, 10/17/2024, 12:03 a.m. Today's date, this moment. I pulled the ticket out and handed it back. The passenger took it, studied it with an expression I couldn't read, then looked up at me. For the first time, they smiled. It wasn't a human smile. The geometry was wrong. "Which platform for the northbound line?" "Track 7, I said automatically. "But there are no more trains tonight." "Thank you." They walked toward track 7, footsteps echoing against the tile. I watched them go, the coat leaving a trail of water that reflected the overhead lights. They reached the platform edge, stopped at the yellow safety line, and stood facing the tunnel entrance. I blinked. When my eyes opened, they were facing me, standing in the exact same spot, but rotated 180 degrees, looking directly at the booth. They hadn't turned. Their position had simply changed, like a jump cut in a film. My throat tightened. I reached for the radio clipped to my belt. I blinked again. They were closer, no longer at the safety line, but halfway across the platform, still facing me, still not moving, but occupying a different point in space each time I broke eye contact. I forced myself to keep my eyes open. My vision blurred. Tears formed at the corners. The figure remained stationary, but I could feel the pressure behind my eyes building, the biological imperative to blink becoming unbearable. I blinked. They were at the platform stairs, 10 feet from the booth. I lunged for the door control, slamming the lock button. The booth door's magnetic seal engaged with a heavy thunk. Through the glass, I could see them standing at the base of the stairs, head tilted slightly, studying me with the detached curiosity of someone observing an insect. "The train is coming," they said, though the booth was soundproofed. I shouldn't have been able to hear them, but the words bypassed my ears entirely, arriving directly in my mind. "You validated the ticket. The train is coming." "There is no train," I said, voice shaking. "The schedule doesn't—" The platform lights flickered, once, twice. Then a low rumble began to build from deep in the tunnel, the kind that precedes an arriving train. But the sound was wrong, too deep, too organic, like breathing rather than machinery. The departure board above track 7 flickered to life. It hadn't been used in years. The digital displays were all centralized now, but the old split flap board began cycling through letters with sharp mechanical clatters. NORTHBOUND, ARRIVING, TRACK. 7. Wind began to push through the tunnel, carrying the smell of rust and standing water and something else, something ancient and wrong. The lights along the tunnel walls became visible, growing brighter as whatever was approaching drew closer. The passenger turned back toward the platform edge, facing the tunnel again. They raised one hand, holding the punch ticket up like an offering. The train emerged. I cannot accurately describe what I saw. My mind insisted it was a train. It had the general shape, the forward momentum, the steel presence of rolling stock, but the details refused to cohere. The windows were dark, but somehow showed reflections of places I'd never seen. Stations with architecture that predated the modern transit system. platforms crowded with people in outdated clothing, tunnels that branched in geometrically impossible directions. The train stopped. The doors opened. No hiss of pneumatics, just a smooth, silent parting. The passengers stepped aboard. They turned one last time to look at me, and in that moment I saw not one person but dozens, hundreds, overlapping like double exposures. All the people who'd ever held that ticket, all the journeys it had witnessed, all compressed into a single figure standing in the doorway. The doors closed. The train moved forward, accelerating into the tunnel. But instead of the sound fading, it grew louder, as if the train were traveling in a loop, passing through the same point in space over and over. The platform lights steadied. The rumbling stopped. The departure board went dark. I was alone again. My shift report required an explanation for any unusual incidents. I stared at the blank field on my screen for 20 minutes before typing. Trespasser on platform after hours, escorted off premises, no further action required. I clocked out at 1:42 a.m. and walked to my car through rain that had gentled to a drizzle. As I pulled out of the staff lot, I glanced back at the station. Someone was standing on the Track 7 platform, visible through the rain-streaked fence. They raised one hand. In it, something small and rectangular. A ticket. I drove home. I did not look back again. But I started noticing things. Small things. The validation machine's punch count has been increasing by 1 each night, even though I'm the only person in the station and I haven't processed any tickets. The figure appears in my peripheral vision sometimes, standing just out of clear sight on empty platforms or reflected in dark windows. And 3 nights ago, I found something in my coat pocket. I don't know how it got there. I haven't worn that coat in weeks. It's a ticket, thick cardstock, yellowed with age. My name is printed on it, though I never wrote it there. The date stamp reads tomorrow. Some stations echo long after the trains have stopped running. I used to think it was just the architecture, the way sound bounces through concrete and tile. Now I understand it's something else. Some tickets get punched but never get used up. Some passengers are always in transit, always waiting for the right train to arrive. I've been looking at the validation machine differently lately, wondering what happens when the count reaches a certain number. Wondering if there's a threshold, a limit, a final punch. I think I'm going to find out soon. Story 2. The Ghost in the Gate Logs. The turnstile clicked at 02:17 a.m., the same as every night before. I was standing 3 feet away, watching the empty station entrance through the maintenance camera feed. No one was there. No body passed through. But the counter incremented by 1 and card ID 8472993X registered in the system log, an account that didn't exist in our database, linked to a name that had been dead for 9 years. I checked the footage. The timestamp showed passage, but the frame itself was empty. Just the turnstile arms rotating on their own, and in the reflection of the glass barrier, for one frozen moment, I saw someone standing exactly where I was standing. My job title is Fairgate Technician, which sounds more sophisticated than the reality. I maintain the turnstiles and card readers at 7 stations along the Red Line's northern section, documenting every mechanical failure, software glitch, and calibration drift with clinical precision. The work is solitary and methodical, exactly why I requested this position after 5 years in the chaos of central dispatch. I prefer the company of machines to people. Machines are predictable. They fail in understandable ways. Harrington Station became my primary assignment 18 months ago. It's a mid-tier station processing about 4,000 commuters daily, dropping to near zero after midnight. The Fairgate system consists of 12 turnstiles arranged in 3 banks of 4, controlled by a central server housed in a maintenance closet behind the ticket booth. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Wednesday through Saturday, performing diagnostics, clearing jams, and monitoring the gate logs for anomalies. The logs are comprehensive. Every card tap, every gate opening, every denied entry gets recorded with a timestamp, card ID, entry exit point, and associated account data. The system maintains these records for auditing purposes, creating a perfect chronological record of every person who passes through. It was during my routine log review on March 3rd that I first noticed the anomaly. Card ID 847293X. Entry logged at 02:17:03 a.m. through Gate 7, no corresponding exit. Account status: unregistered, no fare deducted, no name associated. I assumed it was a data error, a phantom entry caused by electromagnetic interference or a corrupted memory block. I flagged it for the morning systems analyst and moved on. The next night, same time, 02:17:03 a.m., same card ID, same gate, same impossible entry. I checked the security footage. The timestamp aligned perfectly, 02:17:03 a.m. The camera angle showed Gate 7 clearly. The turnstile arms rotated, the sensor lights blinked green. But the frame was empty. No person, no shadow, no disruption of the space that should contain a human body. I ran diagnostics on Gate 7, all systems nominal. I cleaned the sensors, recalibrated the readers, tested the mechanical components. Everything functioned perfectly. Yet that night at 02:17:03 a.m., the log registered another entry. Card ID 847293X. I began staying at Gate 7 during the 02 order hour, watching it directly. On March 6th, I stood within arm's reach of the turnstile, staring at the reader screen. At 02:17:03 a.m. exactly, the reader beeped. The screen flashed. Card accepted. The arms rotated. I was looking directly at the space where a person would stand, and there was nothing there. Just empty air and the mechanical movement of the gate. But I heard something. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate footsteps moving through the gate, continuing toward the platform stairs, fading into silence. I checked the footage later. The camera showed me standing beside the gate, looking confused, turning my head to follow something the camera couldn't see. In the audio track, underneath the ambient station noise, there were footsteps. I filed a detailed report with my supervisor, Marcus Brennan. He reviewed it with the disinterest of someone who'd seen too many technical glitches to be concerned about one more. Electromagnetic interference, he said. Those old card readers pick up radio frequencies, bus transponders, even pacemakers. Ghost entry happens all the time. Just filter it out of the monthly audit. But electromagnetic interference doesn't explain synchronized mechanical movement. It doesn't explain footsteps on audio recordings. It doesn't explain why the same card ID appeared every single night at the exact same second. I started documenting everything. I set up my laptop in the maintenance closet, logging the entries in real time. I captured video from multiple angles. I recorded audio. Every night, 02:17:03 a.m. without fail. The pattern was absolute. On March 12th, I decided to trace the card ID itself. Every transit card in the system links to an account, name, billing address, contact information. Even unregistered cards have manufacturing data, batch numbers, activation dates. But card ID 847293X didn't exist in any database I could access. It wasn't in the active registry, the inactive archive, or the manufacturing logs. According to every system I checked, this card had never been issued. I went deeper. I accessed the historical archive, the backup servers that store deleted account data going back to the system's installation in 2008. I searched for partial matches, similar card numbers, any fragment of 847293X in the old records. I found one result. A deleted account purged in 2015. The card ID was close but not exact. 847293, just missing the X suffix. The account belonged to a woman named Rachel Kimball. She'd been a regular commuter using Harrington Station daily for 7 years. Her account was terminated on September 8, 2015. The termination reason code was D09, deceased. I searched for more information about Rachel Kimball. Obituaries, news articles, public records. I found a brief death notice in the local newspaper archive. Rachel Kimball, age 34, died September 8, 2015, in an accident at Harrington Station. She'd fallen onto the tracks during the morning rush hour. The train couldn't stop in time. The accident occurred at 8:17 a.m., but in the system ghost entries appear at 02:17 a.m. 12 hours different, exact opposite time on the clock face. I felt cold realization spreading through my chest. I went back to the gout logs and filtered for entries before March 3rd. The first time I'd noticed the anomaly. The ghost entries started exactly 9 years after her death. September 8th, 2024. Card ID 847293X. Every single night since then appearing at 02:17 a.m. I was sitting in the maintenance closet staring at this data when I heard the footsteps again. But it was 11:47 p.m., nowhere near 02:17. The footsteps were coming from the platform stairs, ascending toward the main entrance. Slow, deliberate, getting louder. I checked the security monitors. The station was empty. The cameras showed nothing. But the footsteps continued, reaching the main hall now, echoing through the space. I could track their movement by sound alone, crossing the hall, approaching the fare gates. The monitors showed gate 7, empty. But the sensor lights began to blink, red, green, rapidly cycling. The turnstile arms shuddered but didn't rotate. The card reader screen flickered with fragments of text too brief to read. Then everything stopped. The lights steadied. The arms stilled. Silence returned. I looked at the log. No entry recorded. The clock showed 11:51 p.m. But when I rewound the security footage to review what had just happened, there was something wrong with the playback. For 3 seconds during the disturbance, the camera feed showed a figure standing at gate 7. Not a clear image, more like a heat shimmer, a distortion in the shape of a person. And in the glass barrier's reflection, I saw the maintenance closet. I saw myself sitting at my laptop. And I saw someone standing directly behind me. I spun around. The closet was empty. Just shelves of equipment and the server rack humming quietly. I packed up my laptop and left the closet. I couldn't stay in that confined space. I moved to the ticket booth, where the windows provided better visibility and multiple exits. The rest of my shift passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of occupying space that someone else was also occupying, just slightly out of phase. The next night, I arrived to find a notice on my locker. Marcus wanted to see me. I went to his office before my shift started, and he waved me to a chair with an expression of tired frustration. "You need to stop with the Rachel Kimball thing," he said. "I didn't mention Rachel Kimball to you. You've been accessing restricted archive files. You triggered a system administrator alert. Look, I get it. You found a coincidence, but that's all it is. That card ID is a data artifact, nothing more. You're spending work hours chasing ghost stories when you should be maintaining equipment. The entries are real, the logs don't lie. The logs are corrupted, filter it out and move on." He leaned forward. "I'm giving you a direct order. Stop investigating this. Stop filing reports about it. Do your job and leave the ghost alone." I wanted to argue, but his expression made it clear the conversation was over. I returned to my station and started my shift. I resolved to be professional, to follow orders, to ignore the anomaly. At 02:17:03 a.m., I was performing routine maintenance on Gate 3, deliberately avoiding Gate 7. I heard the familiar sound, the beep of the card reader, the rotation of the turnstile arms. I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the diagnostic tablet, then I heard my name. not spoken aloud but transmitted through the bones of my skull, bypassing my ears entirely. Claire. I looked up. Gate 7 was across the hall, maybe 30 feet away. The turnstile arms were still. The reader screen was dark, but standing in front of the gate, visible now, solid now, was a woman. Mid-30s, wearing business attire, holding a transit card in her right hand. She was looking directly at me. I blinked. She was gone. But the card reader screen remained illuminated, displaying text. Claire Morrison. Card ID pending. Entry scheduled my name. My full name. And below it a date and time. September 8th, 2025, 8:17 a.m. Exactly 1 year from tonight. The anniversary of Rachel Kimball's death. The same time of day she died. The screen went dark. I stood frozen. Diagnostic tablets slipping from my hands. The plastic case cracked against the floor, but I barely heard it. I finished my shift mechanically, documenting nothing, speaking to no one. When I clocked out at 6:03 a.m., I drove home and called in sick for the next 3 days. I've been researching obsessively since then. I found more information about Rachel Kimball. She'd been a transit system employee before she died. Her position, fare gate technician. She'd worked the night shift at Harrington Station, the exact same assignment I have now. The accident report describes her death as unusual. She'd been on the platform during her shift, no clear reason why, and witnesses reported she'd been looking at her phone, distracted. But security footage from that morning showed something different. She wasn't looking at her phone. She was looking at the tracks, staring at them, and moments before she fell, she stepped forward deliberately as if someone had called her name. I have 8 months until September 8th, 2025, 8 months until 8:17 a.m. The system has scheduled me for something I can't comprehend. Every night, card ID 847293X passes through Gate 7 at 2:17:03 a.m. Every night, the ghost logs record a journey that can't be stopped. I requested a transfer to a different station. Marcus denied it. "You're being irrational," he said. "You're exactly where you need to be." I still work the night shift at Harrington Station. I still maintain the gates with clinical precision. But I've stopped looking at the logs. I've stopped checking Gate 7. Some systems have routines you can't interrupt, patterns that run deeper than code or circuitry. The turnstiles click. The counters increment. And somewhere in the data, my name is waiting in a queue scheduled for a journey I validated the moment I started paying attention. Story 3. The storage room behind track. 4. The door shouldn't exist. I've worked lost and found for 8 years, cataloging every forgotten umbrella and unclaimed briefcase in this station, and Track 4's storage corridor has never had a 4th door. Just 3. Electrical access, ventilation shaft, emergency exit. But tonight there's a 4th, unmarked and slightly ajar, with light bleeding out from the gap. Inside, I can see shelves lined with items I never logged. A child's backpack tagged with next week's date. A wedding ring in a box marked 3 months from now. And at the far end, sitting alone on the top shelf under harsh fluorescent light, a leather wallet. The tag reads my name, my address. The date stamp says tomorrow, and inside the wallet is a photo of my daughter standing in front of a building I've never seen before, holding flowers I haven't bought yet, at a funeral I don't remember planning. Lost and found operations at Westfield Station occupy a converted storage room on the lower platform level, accessible through a service corridor that runs parallel to Track 4. The space is approximately 12 by 15 feet, lined with industrial shelving units that hold the accumulated detritus of commuter forgetfulness. Umbrellas, phones, books, clothing, bags, keys, tablets, charging cables, water bottles, glasses, wallets, and an impressive variety of items too specific to categorize. Every object is tagged with the date of recovery, location found, and a brief description. If unclaimed after 90 days, items are donated to charity or disposed of according to departmental policy. I've been the lost and found attendant for 8 years. The position suits my temperament. It's solitary work that requires methodical organization and attention to detail. My shift runs from 7:00 p.m. to 3:00 a.m. 5 days a week. During those hours, I process items brought in by cleaning crews and platform staff, update the database, respond to inquiries from people trying to recover their possessions, and maintain the physical organization of the shelving system. The storage room is windowless and accessed through a service corridor that branches off Track 4's platform. The corridor has 3 doors: electrical access at the near end, ventilation shaft in the middle, and an emergency exit at the far end that opens onto a service alley. I know this corridor intimately. I've walked it thousands of times. On April 9th, during my routine midnight walkthrough from Track 4 to the storage room, I noticed something wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just subtly, unignorably wrong. There was a 4th door. It was positioned between the ventilation shaft and the emergency exit, on the left side of the corridor where there had always been blank concrete wall. The door was unmarked, painted the same institutional gray as the others with a standard commercial handle. A thin line of fluorescent light bled from the gap at the bottom. I stopped walking. I stared at it. I tried to reconcile this new door with my memory of the corridor. 8 years of memory, thousands of walks. A space I knew as thoroughly as my own apartment. The door had not been there yesterday. It had not been there this morning when I arrived for my shift. Yet it looked old, not recently installed. The paint around the frame showed age, the same wear pattern as the other doors. The handle had the dull patina of years of use. I approached slowly. No signage indicated the room's purpose. No warning labels, no restricted access notices. I pressed my ear against the door and heard nothing. Just the ambient hum of ventilation systems that permeate every underground space. I tried the handle. It turned easily. The door opened inward. The room beyond was larger than I expected, maybe 20 feet deep, lined on both sides with metal shelving units identical to those in my storage room. The shelves were filled with items, bags, boxes, containers, all neatly arranged. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting the space in harsh white light. I stepped inside. Every item on the shelves had a tag, the same tagging system I used, white cardstock with handwritten details. But I hadn't tagged these items. I'd never seen them before. I picked up the nearest object, a child's backpack, blue with cartoon characters. The tag read, "Child's Backpack Blue, found Track 4, Platform East, date 04/15/2024, time 8:23 a.m. Today was April 9th. The tag showed a date 6 days in the future. I checked another item, a briefcase, brown leather, tag, briefcase, brown leather, found main hall near gate 5, date 04/22/2024, time 6:47 p.m. 13 days from now. A third item, a phone in a cracked case, tag, smartphone, black, found, Track 2, Platform West, date 05/03/2024, time 10:15 a.m. 24 days from now. Every item was dated in the future. All of them cataloged with locations, times, descriptions, all written in handwriting that looked exactly like mine but that I had not written. I moved deeper into the room, scanning the shelves. The dates progressed chronologically. Items near the door were dated within the next few weeks. Items further back showed dates months ahead. The shelving continued into shadow at the far end of the room, suggesting the space extended further than the lighting revealed. I selected an item from several months ahead, a wedding ring in a small cardboard box. The tag read, "Gold Wedding Band, engraved E&M 2019, found Platform 6 North Stairs, date 07/12/2024, time 11:33 p.m. I opened the box. The ring was there, gold, worn, with the engraving visible on the inner surface. E&M 2019. I photographed the tag with my phone, closed the box, and returned it to the shelf. The far end of the room drew my attention. The shelving terminated at a back wall, and on the top shelf of the final unit, illuminated by a dedicated spotlight that I hadn't noticed from the entrance, sat a single item. A leather wallet, brown, aged. The tag faced outward, clearly visible even from a distance. I approached slowly, my heartbeat accelerating in my chest. When I was close enough to read the tag, my breath stopped. Leather wallet, brown, contents ID, credit cards, family photo, $47 cash. Found, platform 4, track level. Date, 04/10/2024, time 2:31 a.m. Name, David Monroe. My name, my full name, tomorrow's date, 2:31 a.m. during my shift, during my usual patrol time for track 4. I reached for the wallet with shaking hands. The leather was familiar. I owned a wallet exactly like this. I checked my back pocket reflexively. My current wallet was there, solid and present. But the one on the shelf looked identical, down to the scuff mark on the corner where I'd dropped it in a parking lot 3 years ago. I opened it. My driver's license visible through the clear plastic window. My credit cards in the slots. In the billfold, 2 20s, a 5 and 2 1s, $47, exactly the amount I currently had in my actual wallet. And in the photo sleeve, a picture of my daughter, Emma, age 7. But the photo was wrong. Emma was standing in front of a building I didn't recognize. A church, maybe, or a funeral home. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen, holding white flowers, her expression solemn. Behind her, partially visible, were other people in dark clothing, faces I couldn't quite make out. I pulled out my phone and called Emma's mother, Sarah. We'd been divorced for 4 years, but we maintained cordial communication for Emma's sake. Sarah answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. David? It's almost 1 in the morning. Is Emma okay? What? Yes, she's asleep. What's wrong? Nothing. I needed to check, sorry. I hung up before she could press further. I looked at the photo again. Emma standing in front of a building I didn't know, wearing clothes I'd never seen, at an event I couldn't identify. I photographed the wallet, the tag, the photo. I closed the wallet and returned it carefully to the shelf. Then I backed out of the room slowly, as if sudden movement might trigger something. In the corridor, I turned to close the door and hesitated. I pulled out my phone and checked the photos I'd just taken. The images were there. The wallet, the tag with my name, the photo of Emma. Proof that what I'd seen was real. I closed the door. It latched with a soft click. I returned to my main storage room and tried to continue my normal duties, but my hands were shaking too badly to write clearly in the logbook. I pulled up the photo of the wedding ring tag on my phone. July 12, 2024, Platform 6, North Stairs, 11:33 p.m. I created a calendar reminder. At 3 a.m. I clocked out and drove home. I didn't sleep. At 7 a.m. I called Emma and asked if I could take her to breakfast. Sarah agreed, confused by the urgency in my voice. I picked Emma up at 8:30, took her to her favorite pancake place, and spent 2 hours just watching her talk about school and friends and the science fair project she was working on. She was fine, healthy, happy, exactly as she should be. I returned her home at 11 hours and drove back to Westfield Station, even though I wasn't scheduled to work until evening. I entered through the service entrance, walked down to track 4, and followed the corridor to where the door had been. Blank wall. No door. Just concrete, exactly as it had been for 8 years. I ran my hand across the surface. Solid. Uninterrupted. I checked the photos on my phone, still there, still showing the door, the room, the items. But the door itself was gone. I worked my regular shift that night. At 2:31 a.m., I performed my standard patrol of Track 4, checking the platform and the track level service areas. I found nothing unusual. I didn't lose my wallet. At 3 a.m., I clocked out and went home. The door remained absent for 6 days. On April 15th, during my midnight walkthrough, the door was back. This time, I was less hesitant. I opened it immediately and stepped inside. The shelving looked the same, but the items had changed. The child's backpack I'd seen before was gone. In its place was a different backpack, tagged with a date 3 weeks ahead. The items I'd photographed previously were also gone, replaced by new objects with new future dates. I went directly to the back of the room. The leather wallet was gone. In its place, a smartphone in a blue case. The tag read, "Smartphone. Blue case. Contents: personal data, recent calls to Emma. Found. Main hall, gate 8. Date: 05/02/2024. Time: 9:17 p.m. Name: David Monroe." My name again. A different date, a different item, but the same name. I examined the phone. The case was identical to the one I currently used. I pressed the power button. The phone activated, showing the lock screen. A photo of Emma at the beach, the same photo I used on my own phone. I tried my usual passcode. It worked. The phone unlocked. It was my phone, or a version of it. The apps were arranged identically. The contacts were the same. I opened the recent calls. Multiple calls to Emma over the past few days. Multiple missed calls from Sarah, and one call to Westfield Station Administration, time-stamped at 8:03 p.m. on May 2nd, 2024, the same day the tag said this phone would be found. I opened the messages. The most recent text thread was with Sarah, dated May 2nd. "Sarah, you need to be here. Me. I can't leave work." Sarah: "David, this is important. She's asking for you." Me: "Who is? Emma, what's wrong?" Sarah: "Just come to Mercy General, room 407. Me: "What happened?" Sarah: "Please just come." The conversation ended there. No further messages. I checked the call log again. The final outgoing call was to Westfield Station Administration at 8:03 p.m. Duration 2 minutes 14 seconds. I backed out to the home screen and opened the Photos app. The most recent photo showed Emma in a hospital bed, pale, connected to IV lines, eyes closed. The timestamp read May the 1st, 2024, 4:22 p.m. My hands went numb. I nearly dropped the phone. I closed the Photos app and set the phone back on the shelf exactly as I'd found it. My breathing had become shallow and rapid. I pulled out my own phone and called Emma again. It rang 4 times before Sarah answered, irritated. "David, it's after midnight. You called this morning. What is going on? I need to know if Emma's okay." "She's fine. She's asleep in her room. You're scaring me. Do you need help?" "No, I'm sorry. Bad dream. I needed to hear she was okay." I hung up. I photographed the tag on the phone, then left the room and closed the door behind me. I documented everything I'd seen in a private journal, not in the official logs. Over the following weeks, I checked the corridor obsessively. The door appeared and disappeared according to no pattern I could discern, sometimes present for days, sometimes absent for a week. When it appeared, I explored. The room's contents continually updated, always showing items from upcoming dates. I found a lost jacket belonging to a colleague, dated 2 weeks ahead. When that date arrived, the colleague reported losing their jacket in exactly the location and time indicated on the tag I'd seen. The wedding ring appeared on July 12th at 11:33 p.m., platform 6, North Stairs. I know because I was there watching when a commuter dropped it while running for a train. I recovered it and logged it in my system, and the details matched the tag I'd photographed 3 months earlier. Every prediction was accurate. Every item appeared when and where the tags claimed. The room was cataloging the future with perfect precision. I reached July 30th without incident. No accidents, no emergencies, no hospital visits. Emma remained healthy. I began to think the implications of what I'd seen might be avoidable. That knowledge of the future could be used to change it. On August 3rd, the door appeared again. I went to the back shelf. The smartphone was gone. In its place, a black umbrella. The tag read, "Black umbrella, wooden handle. Found, track 4, platform west. Date, 08/15/2024. Time, 3:14 a.m. Name, David Monroe." But underneath it, pushed slightly back on the shelf, partially hidden, a small item wrapped in clear plastic. I pulled it forward. A hospital identification bracelet, adult size. The printed label read, "Monroe, Emma. Doobie, 03/17/2017. Admit date, 08/09/2024. Room 407, Mercy General. August 9th, 6 days from now. Room 407, the same room number from the text messages I'd seen on the future phone. The bracelet was tagged. Patient ID bracelet, child size, found, track 2, platform east. Date, 08/10/2024. Time, 6:22 a.m. Name, Emma Monroe. Below that tag, another item. A child's drawing on crumpled paper. The drawing showed a stick figure girl holding hands with a stick figure man. Above them, in careful child's handwriting, "Me and Daddy." The tag read, "Child's drawing, paper, crayon, found, main hall, bench 3. Date, 08/11/2024. Time, 7:43 a.m. Name, David Monroe." The dates progressed. I searched the shelves frantically. More items. Emma's backpack, dated August 14th. A stuffed animal she slept with, dated August 16th. My keys, my jacket, my phone, all dated within the next 2 weeks, all found in the station during my shift hours. The pattern was clear. I would be here, at the station, during a period when Emma was in the hospital. I would be here instead of with her. I would lose these items in my distraction, my absence. And at the very back of the shelf, in the darkest corner, a service program printed on folded cardstock. I opened it with hands that had stopped shaking because they'd gone completely numb. Memorial service for Emma Grace Monroe. March 17th, 2017, August 13th, 2024. Service to be held at Riverside Community Church. The date was 1 week away. The front of the program showed a photo of Emma. The same photo I'd seen months ago in the wallet, standing in front of a building in a black dress, holding white flowers. But now I recognized the building. Riverside Community Church, and the flowers were funeral flowers. I collapsed against the shelving. The program fell from my hands. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be inevitable. Knowledge of the future meant it could be changed. I left the room, left the station, drove directly to Sarah's house despite the 1 a.m. hour. I pounded on the door until she answered, furious and frightened. I demanded to see Emma. Sarah threatened to call the police. I broke down, sobbing on her doorstep, trying to explain without sounding insane that Emma was in danger, that something would happen in 6 days, that I needed to protect her. Sarah let me sleep on the couch. In the morning, I took Emma to her doctor for an emergency checkup. The doctor found nothing wrong. I insisted on blood work, imaging, comprehensive screening. Everything came back normal. Emma was healthy. But on August 9th, while walking home from a friend's house, Emma collapsed. Seizure, followed by unconsciousness. The ambulance took her to Mercy General, room 407. Tests revealed a brain aneurysm. Congenital, undetectable in standard checkups, activated by random chance. The doctors said it had probably been there since birth, waiting. She died on August 13th at 11:22 p.m. I was not at the station. I was beside her bed, holding her hand. I didn't return to work for 3 weeks. When I finally came back, I walked directly to Track 4's corridor. The door was there, waiting. Inside, the shelves had changed. No more future items. Instead, the room was filled with objects from the past. Emma's belongings. Things she'd lost over the years, things I'd logged and processed and never known were hers because she'd never claimed them. A hair clip from 2 years ago. a toy she'd dropped on the platform when she was 4, a school notebook from last year. And on the back shelf, in the same spot where I'd found the memorial program, a new tag, attached to nothing, just pinned to the empty shelf. David Monroe, Lost Track 4 Service Corridor. Date 04/09/2024. Time 11:47 p.m. Status unclaimed. The date I first entered this room, the time I saw my own name on that wallet tag. I haven't left the station since I read that tag. I work my shifts, I catalog items, I maintain the shelves. Sometimes the door appears, sometimes it doesn't. The room has stopped showing me the future. Now it only shows me what I've already lost. But occasionally, late in my shift, I find items that don't belong to anyone in the database. A child's backpack I remember seeing on that first night in April. A wedding ring that should have been found on July 12th. Objects from timelines that didn't happen, from futures that were prevented or changed. Some losses are cataloged but never claimed. Some doors lead to storage rooms that exist between what is and what might have been. And sometimes when I walk that corridor at 11:47 p.m., I see the door standing open, light spilling out, and inside, shelves full of items tagged with names of people who aren't gone yet but will be, arranged in chronological order, waiting for the dates on the tags to arrive and make the losses official. Story 4. Platform 13's last call. My voice came through the PA system at 2:47 a.m., calm, professional, announcing the northbound departure from Platform 13. But Platform 13 has been sealed for 35 years. I was standing in the control booth watching the empty board, and I hadn't touched the microphone. Yet my voice continued. Please stand clear of the closing doors. Next stop, Riverside. I pulled up the archived announcements, hands shaking, and found the audio file. It was my voice, my exact inflection. But the recording was dated October 8th, 1989, 6 years before I was born. And in the background static beneath my words, I could hear something else. Footsteps, descending stairs, getting closer to a platform that no longer exists, where a train has been waiting 35 years to depart. I've been station master at Riverside Central for 23 years. The position carries a weight of authority and responsibility that extends beyond simple operations management. I oversee platform assignments, coordinate service schedules, manage staff deployment, handle emergency protocols, and serve as the voice of the station through the public address system. My announcements guide commuters through their daily journeys, providing information about arrivals, departures, delays, and service changes. It's a role that requires absolute reliability and measured calm. Riverside Central is one of the oldest stations in the network, constructed in 1952 with significant expansion in 1975 to accommodate growing passenger volume. The station originally had 13 platforms. In 1989, Platform 13 was permanently closed following a structural collapse during morning rush hour. 17 people died. The platform was sealed with concrete barriers and marked as permanently out of service. The space still exists behind those barriers, a ghost platform in the station's infrastructure, visible on original blueprints but eliminated from all operational documentation and signage. The current layout shows 12 platforms. Platform 12 terminates at a concrete wall where Platform 13 once continued. The official position is that Platform 13 never existed in the current configuration. Staff members hired after 1990 don't know about it. The old-timers like me remember, but we don't discuss it. The collapse was ruled a construction defect, lawsuits were settled, and the station moved forward. I became station master in 2001. My predecessor, Gerald Hammond, retired abruptly at age 57 after 32 years of service. He gave me a single piece of advice during the transition. Don't make announcements after 2 a.m. I asked him to elaborate. He wouldn't. He handed me the keys to the control booth, shook my hand, and left. I never saw him again. I understood his advice 3 weeks into the position. It was October 17, 2001, around 2:30 a.m. The station was empty except for 2 overnight custodians and a security guard. I was in the control booth completing shift reports. The PA system activated on its own, no button pressed, no microphone engaged, and my voice emerged from the speakers. Now arriving on Platform 13, northbound express service to Riverside Terminal. Please stand clear of the platform edge. My voice, my cadence, my professional announcement style, but I hadn't spoken. I was sitting at the desk, mouth closed, listening to my own voice announce a train arriving at a platform that had been sealed for 12 years. The announcement ended. The PA system clicked off. I checked the audio log. No transmission recorded. I checked the PA controls. All systems normal. I tried to rationalize it as audio feedback, a crossed wire playing back a previous recording. But Platform 13 hadn't been used in 12 years. I'd never made an announcement for Platform 13. I hadn't been alive when Platform 13 was operational. I waited for something else to happen. Nothing did. At 6 a.m. I clocked out and went home. I told myself I'd been working too many late shifts. That exhaustion had caused an auditory hallucination. 3 nights later at 2:47 a.m. it happened again. Same announcement, same voice, same impossible platform. This time I was standing directly beside the PA controls watching them. The microphone activated on its own, the transmission light illuminated, and my voice announced the Platform 13 arrival. I recorded it on my personal phone. When the announcement ended, I played back the recording. My voice was there, clear and distinct. Now arriving on Platform 13. But underneath, in the background noise, I heard something else. Footsteps, echoing footsteps, like someone walking on a concrete platform. I pulled the audio archive logs from the system's backup server. The PA system stores every announcement for maintenance and audit purposes, dating back to its installation in 1983. I searched for Platform 13 announcements from before the collapse. I found hundreds. Standard arrival and departure announcements from 1983 through October 8, 1989, the day of the collapse. The final recorded announcement was at 8:14 a.m., 2 minutes before the structural failure. The voice making those old announcements belonged to Gerald Hammond, my predecessor. I compared the recent phantom announcements to the archived ones. The phrasing was different. I used modern terminology, updated station names, current service designations, but the vocal patterns matched. The rhythm, the breathing, the precise timing. Hammond's old announcements and my phantom announcements were structurally identical, as if following the same script from different points in time. I began documenting every occurrence. The phantom announcements appeared irregularly, always between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., always announcing Platform 13 arrivals or departures, always in my voice. Sometimes the announcements referenced stations that no longer existed, lines that had been discontinued, service patterns from decades ago. I tried to stop them. I disabled the PA system overnight. The announcements continued, transmitted through the speakers despite the power being cut. I disconnected the microphone physically. My voice still emerged from the speakers, clear and authoritative. I locked the control booth and worked from the office upstairs. The PA system activated on its own, announcing trains to Platform 13 that never arrived. The other staff members didn't hear the announcements. I confirmed this by asking the custodians and security guards if they'd noticed anything unusual with the PA system. They said no. The announcements were somehow personal, audible only to me, or perhaps I was the only one listening correctly. On November 3, 2001, I decided to investigate Platform 13 directly. The barrier sealing the old platform is located at the far end of the corridor past Platform 12, marked with faded authorized personnel-only signage. I used my master key to access the service door beside the barrier. Behind it, a narrow maintenance corridor runs parallel to the sealed platform. The corridor is used occasionally by engineering crews to access the structural support systems for platforms 11 and 12. I walked the corridor's length, examining the wall that separates it from Platform 13. Halfway down, I found a ventilation grate. Through the grate, I could see into the sealed space. Platform 13 still existed. The space hadn't been filled in or demolished. It remained largely intact, a ghost platform frozen in time. The concrete showed cracks and damage from the collapse, but the basic structure persevered. Rails were still visible, covered in rust and debris. Old signage hung from the walls, faded but readable. Platform 13 northbound trains. And on the platform itself, benches, trash receptacles, a destination board, dark and lifeless. And something else, shapes that looked like luggage, sitting unattended on the benches. I returned to the control booth and pulled the original incident report from October 8, 1989. The collapse occurred at 8:16 a.m. during morning rush hour. 17 fatalities, 43 injuries. The structural failure was attributed to corroded support columns and inadequate load assessment during the 1975 expansion. The platform was crowded with commuters waiting for the 8:20 northbound express. When the ceiling gave way, tons of concrete and steel fell onto the platform. The report included survivor testimony. Multiple witnesses reported hearing a PA announcement immediately before the collapse, a standard arrival announcement for the 8:20 train. But the announcement included an unusual addition. Please stand clear of the platform edge. Departure in 2 minutes. Platforms don't announce departures before trains arrive. The phrasing didn't match standard protocols. But dozens of survivors specifically remembered that announcement, word for word, delivered in a calm, professional voice. I found the audio archive from that morning. The announcement existed. At 8:14 a.m., 2 minutes before the collapse, the PA system activated and delivered the non-standard announcement. The voice belonged to Gerald Hammond, but the phrasing wasn't his. The script had been altered somehow, delivered with an urgency that didn't match his usual measured tone. I contacted Hammond. His number was listed in the retiree directory. He answered on the 5th ring, his voice thin and uncertain. "Gerald, this is Marcus Tierney. I'm the station master at Riverside Central. I need to ask you about Platform 13. Long silence. Then, "You're hearing the announcements." "Yes." "Did you go to the platform?" "I looked through the ventilation grate." Another silence. "Don't go inside. Don't ever go inside." "What's happening, Gerald? Why am I hearing my own voice making announcements for a sealed platform?" "Because you're the station master. The station needs a voice. It needs someone to call the trains." His breathing had become labored. "I heard the announcements, too. For 12 years. Every night my voice calling trains that couldn't arrive. I thought I was losing my mind. Then one night I understood." "Understood what?" "The station is trying to correct what happened. The collapse, it wasn't supposed to happen. Something went wrong with the timeline, with the sequence of events. The announcement I made that morning at 8:14, I didn't make it consciously." The words came out of my mouth without me deciding to say them. Like something was using me to deliver a message. A message to who? To the people on the platform, to warn them. But I delivered it wrong. I used the wrong words. And they didn't leave. They stayed. And they died. I felt cold spreading through my chest. "What are you saying?" "The station is trying again, using you now, your voice, your announcements. It's attempting to complete the correction, to deliver the message properly, so those people will leave the platform before the collapse." "Gerald, Those people died 35 years ago. There's no one on platform 13 to warn. You looked through the grate. Did you see luggage on the benches? I remembered the shapes I'd seen. Yes. That luggage has been there since 1989, still waiting for trains that never came. The people who own those bags, they're still there too, Marcus. Not in any way we can see normally. But they're there, waiting for the announcement that tells them to leave. I hung up. I sat in the control booth trying to process what he'd said. The idea was impossible. Ghosts waiting for trains. Time loops attempting self-correction through PA announcements. It was insane, but at 2:47 a.m. the PA system activated again. My voice announced, "Final boarding call for platform 13. Northbound express departing in 2 minutes. All passengers please board immediately." The phrasing was different, more urgent, like a warning. I made a decision that I still question. I gathered my things, left the control booth, walked down the corridor past platform 12, unlocked the service door, and entered the maintenance corridor. I reached the ventilation grate and looked through. The platform had changed. The luggage was gone from the benches, and I could see people. Not clearly, they were translucent, flickering like poorly projected images. But they were there. Dozens of them standing in clusters, looking around in confusion. They wore clothing from decades ago. They carried bags and briefcases. They were waiting. The PA system activated, but this time the sound came from inside platform 13, from the old speakers mounted on that ghost platform's walls. My voice emerged. "Attention all passengers on platform 13, structural emergency. Please evacuate the platform immediately. Use the stairs at the north end. Evacuate now." The words weren't mine. I hadn't chosen them, but they came from my mouth anyway, bypassing my conscious will, delivered with absolute authority. The translucent figures turned toward the announcement. They hesitated. Then they began moving, walking toward the far end of the platform, toward stairs I couldn't see from my vantage point. They moved slowly, uncertainly, but they moved. "Final warning," my voice continued. "All passengers must evacuate platform 13 immediately. Structural failure imminent. Evacuate now." The figures moved faster, more urgently. They climbed stairs that existed 35 years ago, and as they left the platform, they began to fade, dissolving like smoke until the space was empty again. The PA system clicked off. The platform returned to its frozen state. Damaged concrete, rusted rails, debris. No people, no luggage, just an abandoned space sealed behind concrete barriers. I backed away from the grate. I walked back through the corridor, locked the service door, and returned to the control booth. The PA system remained silent for the rest of my shift. I checked the audio archives the next day. The evacuation announcement I'd heard didn't exist in the recorded logs. The system showed no transmission at 2:47 a.m. But when I reviewed the 1989 incident report again, I found something that hadn't been there before. A footnote added to the survivor testimony section. Additional note: several witnesses reported hearing a second announcement at approximately 8:15 a.m., instructing passengers to evacuate. This announcement does not appear in audio archives, but was mentioned by multiple survivors as the reason they moved toward the exit stairs before the collapse. 17 individuals who remained on the platform's south end did not hear or respond to this announcement and were killed in the structural failure. The report now acknowledged a second announcement, an evacuation order. The one I'd delivered through the PA system, reaching back through 35 years to warn people who had already died. I remained station master for another decade. The phantom announcements continued sporadically, but they changed character. No longer were they calling trains to platform 13. Now they were evacuation orders, corrections, warnings, messages attempting to alter events that had already been written into the station's history. I retired in 2011. I gave my replacement, Catherine Delaney, the same advice Gerald had given me. Don't make announcements after 2 a.m. She asked me to elaborate. I couldn't. I handed her the keys and walked away. But sometimes late at night I hear my voice on the radio or television, and beneath it, so faint that no one else notices, I hear the echo of a PA system activating, announcing arrivals and departures for platforms that exist between past and present, calling passengers toward trains that travel through time instead of tunnels. Some stations echo with more than just footsteps. Some voices belong to the infrastructure itself, speaking through whoever stands at the microphone, delivering messages across years. And some platforms never truly close. They just wait in the dark, preserving the moment before disaster, replaying it endlessly until someone finally delivers the right words at the right time. I don't know if those 17 people truly escaped, if the timeline changed, if reality bent enough to accommodate a second chance. But the luggage is gone from Platform 13's benches, and the audio archive now shows an evacuation announcement that didn't exist before. Maybe that's enough. Maybe the station got what it needed, a voice willing to deliver the message it couldn't deliver itself. And maybe somewhere in the architecture of time, those 17 people walked up different stairs and went home to lives they were always meant to live. I just had to lend my voice to make it happen. Story 5. The cleaning shift that didn't end. The mop bucket left a wet trail that shouldn't exist. I just cleaned Corridor B heading east, and now the floor was dirty again, but the grime pattern was different, older, thicker, like months of buildup compressed into minutes. The CCTV timestamp said 2:47 a.m. My watch said 2:47 a.m. But when I checked the monitor feed, I saw myself mopping the same corridor 10 feet ahead, moving in perfect synchronization with my current position. I watched myself turn the corner. I turned the corner. On the screen, I watched myself look up at the camera. I looked up at the camera. And in that moment, I understood. The station wasn't replaying footage. It was showing me my next location before I reached it. It was guiding me deeper, corridor by corridor, each turn taking me further from the exit, each cleaned section reappearing behind me covered in dirt that couldn't accumulate that fast. The station needed me to clean something I hadn't reached yet, something waiting at the end of a corridor that keeps extending. My employment with Metropolitan Transit Authority began 14 years ago in a janitorial capacity. The official title is night custodian, though the work is what you'd expect. Mopping floors, emptying trash receptacles, cleaning restrooms, wiping down surfaces, removing graffiti, and maintaining general station hygiene during overnight hours when passenger traffic ceases. I work alone. The shift runs from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 5 nights weekly, covering Riverside Central and its 3 satellite stations. Riverside Central is my primary location, consuming approximately 5 hours of the 8-hour shift. The work is solitary and repetitive, guided by a fixed routine I've executed thousands of times. Corridor A to Corridor D, platforms 1 through 12, restrooms on levels B1 and B2, ticketing hall, station offices. The route never changes, the work never ends. On November 8th, I arrived for my shift at 10:52 p.m. Standard procedure: clock in, gather supplies from the custodial closet on B1, review the shift notes left by the evening crew. The notes indicated minor issues: spilled drink on platform 7, graffiti in the B2 men's restroom, general debris accumulation in corridor C. Nothing unusual. I began the routine. Corridor A first, working east from the main entrance. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting their familiar harsh white glow across yellowing tile. My mop moved in practiced arcs, left to right, advancing forward, ringing, dipping, mopping. The rhythm is meditative. The corridor is 180 feet long. It takes approximately 18 minutes to clean thoroughly. I reached the end, turned right into Corridor B, and began the same process. Corridor B runs parallel to the platforms, providing access to the stairwells that descend to track level. It's slightly shorter, 140 feet, and typically cleaner due to lower foot traffic. At the midpoint of Corridor B, around 11:47 p.m., I noticed the floor ahead of me was already wet. Fresh wet, like someone had just mopped it. I stopped. I was alone. The evening custodian had clocked out at 10:30. No one else had access to the supplies. I continued forward, assuming the wetness was residual moisture from earlier cleaning. But as I approached, I saw the mop trails. Perfect arcs, left to right, identical to my technique. Recent enough that water still pooled in the grout lines. I reached the area and mopped it again, working over the already clean floor. The redundancy was inefficient, but I couldn't leave the routine incomplete. I finished Corridor B, turned into Corridor C. The same thing. Fresh mop trails covering the first 60 feet of Corridor C, as if I'd already cleaned it. But I hadn't. I'd just arrived. I backtracked to Corridor B. The section I'd already cleaned twice was dirty again. Not damp and drying. Dirty. Scuff marks, debris, grime buildup, like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. I checked my watch. 12:03 a.m. I'd been working for just over an hour. I returned to Corridor A, also dirty. The work I'd completed 40 minutes ago was completely undone. I stood in Corridor A, mop in hand, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. The logical explanation was that I'd somehow lost time, that hours had passed unnoticed, that the station had reopened and accumulated new dirt. But the station was empty. The lights were still in night mode. My watch insisted only an hour had passed. I started over, Corridor A east from the main entrance. I mopped methodically, watching the floor transform from dirty to clean. I finished and immediately turned around to check my work. Dirty again. Grime reappearing like time-lapse footage of decay. I checked the custodial closet's CCTV monitor. The system includes cameras covering major corridors and platform areas, displaying feeds on a small black and white monitor mounted above the supply shelves. I rewound the feed for Corridor A. The footage showed me mopping, moving east, exactly as I'd just done. But behind me, in the areas I'd already cleaned, the floor remained dirty. The camera captured my mop moving across tiles that showed no change, as if the cleaning had no effect. I returned to Corridor A and examined the floor closely. Under the fluorescent light, I could see my mop trails, the water, the displaced dirt, the clean streaks. The work was real, but the cleanliness wouldn't persist. It reverted within minutes. I decided to continue the routine. Perhaps completing the full circuit would resolve whatever anomaly was occurring. I worked through Corridors B, C, and D, then descended to Platform 1. The platforms are easier to clean. Open spaces, smooth concrete, fewer tight corners. I started at the north end of Platform 1 and worked south. The routine requires about 12 minutes per platform. I finished Platform 1 and moved to Platform 2. Halfway through, I glanced back at Platform 1. Someone was mopping it. A figure in a gray custodial uniform moving methodically, mop swinging in familiar arcs. I was looking at myself. The figure had my build, my posture, my technique. I dropped my mop. The handle clattered against concrete. The figure on Platform 1 continued working, unaware or unconcerned with my presence. I approached slowly, crossing the gap between platforms via the service walkway. As I got closer, the figure became less distinct, not blurry but somehow less present, like a projection losing focus. By the time I reached Platform 1, the figure was gone. The platform was empty, but the floor was wet with fresh mop trails. I returned to the custodial closet and checked the CCTV monitor again. The feed for Platform 1 showed me mopping, real-time, current moment. But I was standing in the closet watching the monitor. The me on platform 1 turned and looked directly at the camera. I wasn't on platform 1, I was here. The timestamp on the feed, 1:34 a.m. My watch, 1:34 a.m. The feeds were synchronized, but they showed me in two places simultaneously. I made a decision that I recognized was irrational. I would follow myself. I would track the figure on the monitors and see where it led. I watched the CCTV feeds. The figure, my doppelganger, was working through the platforms in sequence. Platform 3, Platform 4, Platform 5. Always 10 to 15 minutes ahead of my actual position. I followed the route, moving through the same spaces, cleaning the same floors, maintaining a distance that kept me always one step behind. At Platform 9, the routine changed. The figure on the monitor deviated from the standard route, walking toward the far end of the platform, past the normal terminus toward the service door that accesses the maintenance tunnels. I'd never cleaned the maintenance tunnels. They weren't part of the custodial route. They were engineering territory, accessed only during repairs. On the monitor, I watched myself unlock the service door using a key I didn't possess and step into the tunnel beyond. The feed cut to a different camera, one I didn't recognize, showing a narrow concrete passage lit by periodic bulbs. The figure continued forward, mop and bucket abandoned, walking with purpose. I went to Platform 9. The service door was closed. I tried the handle, locked. I didn't have the key. But when I checked the door closely, I noticed something. The lock was engaged, but the door wasn't flush with the frame. It was open a crack, maybe half an inch. I pulled. The door swung inward. The tunnel beyond matched what I'd seen on the monitor. Narrow, concrete, dimly lit. I stepped inside. The air was cooler here, damp, carrying the smell of machinery and stagnant water. I walked forward, following the path I'd seen on the screen. The tunnel extended far beyond what the station blueprints showed. I walked for 10 minutes, maybe more, descending gradually. The bulbs overhead became more widely spaced, the pools of darkness between them deeper. I heard something ahead, footsteps, echoing against concrete. I called out, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped, then continued, growing fainter, moving away. I followed. The tunnel branched. I chose the left fork, guided by intuition or something else. The passage narrowed. The walls showed water damage, cracks spreading across the concrete like veins. I reached a junction where 3 tunnels converged. In the center of the junction, my mop and bucket sitting abandoned. No figure, no footsteps. Just the equipment positioned carefully in the exact center of the space. I approached slowly. Beside the bucket, someone had written on the concrete floor using what looked like dirt or grease. "Turn back." The handwriting was mine. I heard a sound behind me, scraping, like something heavy being dragged across concrete. I turned. The tunnel I'd just walked through was dark. The lights had gone out. But in the darkness, I saw movement. Not a person, something else. A shape that didn't resolve into anything recognizable, moving toward me with patient inevitability. I ran. I chose the tunnel to my right, sprinting through the narrow passage, my footsteps echoing chaotically. The lights overhead flickered. The tunnel seemed to extend infinitely, perspective warping as I ran. I reached stairs. Ascending. I climbed desperately, my breath ragged, my legs burning. The stairs went up and up, far longer than the descent had been. I emerged into Corridor A, the main station level. I was back. I checked my watch. 2:47 a.m. Impossible. I'd been in the tunnels for maybe 20 minutes, but over an hour had passed. I went to the custodial closet and checked the CCTV monitor. The feeds showed the station as it should be. Empty, quiet, normal. No figure mopping the platforms. No doppelganger in the tunnels. But when I checked the recorded footage, scrolling back through the night's timeline, I saw myself. over and over, multiple versions cleaning the same spaces at different times, overlapping, phasing through each other like superimposed images. 10 versions of me, 20. Too many to count. And at the end of the recording, the timestamp frozen at 2:47 a.m. One feed showed the tunnel junction. My mop and bucket were there. And written on the floor, updated, "Turn back, it keeps you when you reach the end." I left the closet. I walked through the station, checking each corridor, each platform. Everything was clean, perfectly clean. Like it had been scrubbed dozens of times, layers of effort compressed into a single result. But Corridor C was wrong. It was longer than before. The far end extended past where the wall should be, continuing into shadow. I walked toward it. The corridor kept extending, the far end receding as I approached. I stopped walking. I turned around. Corridor C had extended behind me too. I was in the middle of a space that had no end in either direction. The CCTV camera above me rotated. It focused on me. And on the monitor back in the closet, though I couldn't see it from here, I knew it was showing my location, marking my position, recording where I was so the next version of me would know where to follow. I closed my eyes. I counted to 10. When I opened them, the corridor was normal length again. The far wall was visible, solid, real, but my mop and bucket were gone. I'd left them in the tunnel junction. They were still there, somewhere below, waiting. I completed my shift. I clocked out at 7:02 a.m. I went home. I tried to sleep but couldn't. I returned the next night. The routine was the same. Corridor A to D, platforms, restrooms. But occasionally I'd see myself ahead on the route, just out of clear sight, turning corners, descending stairs. And occasionally the spaces I cleaned would stretch longer than they should. Corridors extending, platforms widening, restrooms adding extra stalls that weren't there before. I've worked here for 14 years, but I don't know how many shifts I've actually completed. Time doesn't track correctly during overnight hours. Sometimes a shift feels like it lasts minutes. Sometimes it feels like days compress into a single night. The CCTV footage now shows hundreds of versions of me, cleaning the same station, walking the same routes, trapped in routines that layer over each other like overlapping transparencies. And somewhere in the maintenance tunnels, in a junction that exists deeper than the blueprints account for, my mop and bucket wait beside a warning written in my own handwriting. Some stations require constant cleaning, not because they accumulate dirt, but because they're trying to work something out of their systems, something that got trapped in the infrastructure, caught in a loop, endlessly repeating. And some custodians become part of that system, their routines absorbed into the station's memory, their shifts extending beyond time into a space where work never ends because the dirt is always already returning. I still work here. I still follow the routine. But sometimes I wonder how many versions of me are walking these corridors simultaneously, each of us believing we're alone, each of us following the same path toward the tunnel that extends forever. The station stays clean. That's what matters. The work continues, and somewhere ahead on the route, I'm already mopping the floor I haven't reached yet, always 10 minutes ahead, guiding myself deeper into the system that needs constant maintenance. I just hope I never catch up to myself. Story 6. The CCTV operator's missing frame camera. 12 showed the same 5 seconds on loop. Empty platform 6, timestamp 9:47 p.m. Fluorescent lights humming above abandoned benches. I'd watched it cycle 20 times before I noticed the figure. Not there on the first loop. Appeared in the second. A shadow at the platform edge, partially obscured by the support column. Third loop. Closer to camera, features obscured. Fourth loop. Facing the lens directly, detailed enough that I could see they were wearing a transit authority uniform. My uniform. 10th loop, standing close enough that the camera should show their face clearly, but the image refused to resolve, pixelating whenever I tried to focus. 20th loop. pressed against the lens, filling the frame, and behind them, visible in the reflection of the platform's glass barrier. My control room, my desk, my monitors, and me, sitting exactly where I was sitting, watching myself watch myself through a camera feed that was recording something that wasn't happening in real time. My position as CCTV analyst for Metropolitan Transit Authority places me in a role of constant observation. The control room, located on the administrative level of Riverside Central Station, houses monitoring equipment for 47 cameras distributed across the station's multiple levels, platforms, corridors, and public spaces. My shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights per week, requires sustained attention to these feeds, logging incidents, coordinating responses to emergencies, and maintaining the integrity of the surveillance system. The work is fundamentally passive. I watch, I record, I respond when necessary, but mostly I observe the empty station through silent screens, tracking the predictable drift of late-night commuters, cleaning crews, and occasional security patrols. Camera 12 monitors Platform 6, positioned to cover the central section from an elevated angle. The feed is unremarkable: standard resolution, adequate lighting, stable mounting. In my 3 years monitoring these systems, Camera 12 has never required maintenance or produced anomalous footage. On December 4th, at approximately 9:47 p.m., shortly after I began my shift, I noticed Camera 12's feed had stopped updating. The timestamp continued incrementing: 9:47:03, 9:47:04, 9:47:05, but the image remained static. Platform 6 showed the same frame: empty platform, overhead lights, bench visible on the right edge, support column center frame, tunnel entrance in the background. I logged the issue as a potential feed freeze and attempted standard troubleshooting. Switching to alternate camera views, refreshing the feed, rebooting the camera's network connection. The timestamp continued advancing, but the image didn't change. Then at 9:47:23, something appeared in the frame. A figure, standing at the platform edge near the tunnel entrance, positioned where no one had been in the previous frozen image. I rewound the footage. The figure wasn't there at 9:47:03, wasn't there at 9:47:10. At 9:47:23, they simply existed, present in a frame that should have been identical to the ones before it. The figure was too distant and the angle too severe to identify details. Average height, dark clothing, standing motionless facing the tunnel. I checked the other cameras covering Platform 6. Cameras 11 and 13 provided different angles of the same space. Their feeds showed Platform 6 normally, updated in real time, no frozen frames and no figure. Platform 6 was empty on those feeds. I returned to Camera 12. The figure remained visible, still frozen at timestamp 9:47:23. I watched for 5 minutes. The timestamp advanced to 9:52:11, but the image didn't change. The figure stood in the same position, locked in a moment that had ended 5 minutes ago. I filed a technical report and flagged Camera 12 for engineering review. But I continued watching the feed, unable to dismiss the wrongness of what I was seeing. At 9:58:06, the figure moved. Not smoothly, the feed was still displaying frozen frames, but the figure's position changed. They were closer now, halfway across the platform, facing the camera. Still too distant for facial features, but I could see more detail. Dark coat, hands at sides, head tilted slightly upward, looking directly at the lens. I checked cameras 11 and 13 again. Platform 6 remained empty on those feeds. The cleaning crew had passed through at 9:45 and no one had entered since. I rewound Camera 12 again, watching the sequence. At 9:47:03, empty platform. At 9:47:23, figure at tunnel entrance. At 9:58:06, figure at midpoint. The transitions were instantaneous, no walking animation, no movement between frames, just positional changes like stop motion. At 10:14:32, the figure moved again. now standing just beyond the bench, maybe 15 feet from the camera. I could see clothing details, a transit authority uniform, the same navy blue jacket and gray pants worn by station staff. The figure's face remained obscured, as if the resolution degraded specifically for that region of the frame. My heart rate had accelerated. I reached for the radio to call security, then hesitated. What would I report? A figure visible on only one camera feed, existing in frozen frames from the past. At 10:31:47, the figure was at the base of the camera post, looking up. The angle made their face nearly visible, but whenever I focused on that area of the screen, the pixels blurred, shifting and reforming to prevent recognition. I stood up from my chair. I could walk to platform 6, verify whether anyone was actually there. But something stopped me. An instinctive understanding that what I was seeing on camera 12 existed in a different temporal space than the physical platform. At 10:49:03, the figure was no longer visible in the frame. The camera angle showed only the mounting post and in the upper corner the concrete ceiling. The camera had been moved, tilted upward. But I hadn't left the control room. No engineering crew had been dispatched. I checked the physical camera list. Camera 12's status: operational, normal parameters, last maintenance October 3rd. But the feed showed a perspective that would only be possible if someone had physically adjusted the mounting angle. At 11:07:55, the feed showed a new angle, facing the control room door. Impossible. Camera 12 was mounted on platform 6, 4 levels below the control room. But the feed displayed the corridor outside my location, showing the door marked CCTV operations authorized personnel only. The timestamp on camera 12 now read 11:07:55. My desk clock read 11:07:55. The feeds had synchronized. Camera 12 was somehow displaying real-time footage of my location while simultaneously being positioned on platform 6, 4 levels below. I checked the other cameras. All normal. Only camera 12 showed the impossible perspective. At 11:08:03, the control room door in camera 12's feed began to open. I turned to look at my actual door. It remained closed, locked from the inside as per protocol. On camera 12's feed, the door opened fully. The figure entered frame, walking into the corridor toward the camera, wearing a transit authority uniform, face still obscured by digital artifacts. The figure walked closer. The camera perspective somehow tracked them, following their movement through the corridor. They stopped directly in front of the lens, blocking the entire frame. Then the image changed. The feed now showed the interior of the control room. My desk, my monitors. The camera was inside, looking at my workspace from the position of the door. And I could see myself, sitting at my desk, facing the monitors, visible from behind. The figure entered frame from the right edge, walking into the control room, approaching my position. On the monitor, I watched this figure move toward my sitting form. They stopped directly behind my chair. I spun around. The control room was empty. The door remained closed and locked. No one was there. I turned back to the monitors. Camera 12 showed the figure standing behind my chair, looking down at me. Their right hand extended forward, reaching toward my shoulder. I felt pressure. Physical pressure on my right shoulder. The weight of a hand pressing down. I jumped from the chair, stumbling backward. The pressure released. The control room was still empty. Camera 12's feed went black. All 47 monitors went black simultaneously, the feeds cutting out in perfect synchronization. The control room lights flickered. The climate control system's hum ceased, leaving absolute silence. Then the monitors reactivated. All 47 feeds returned. But every camera, not just camera 12, was showing the same image. The control room interior, my empty chair, the desk, the monitors themselves creating infinite recursive reflections. Every camera in the station had redirected to film this room. I backed toward the door, fumbling for my keys. The monitor's images updated, tracking my movement. All 47 feeds showing me from different angles, impossible angles, perspectives that couldn't exist within the physical constraints of the room. I unlocked the door and exited into the corridor. The hallway lights were functioning normally. I ran toward the emergency stairwell, my footsteps echoing against linoleum. Behind me, I heard the control room door open. Footsteps in the corridor, measured, deliberate, following. I descended the stairs 4 at a time, exiting at ground level. The main station hall was empty, lit by night mode fluorescence. I ran toward the exit, past darkened retail spaces and locked fare gates. The CCTV monitors in the station hall, the public displays showing platform feeds, were all active. All showing the same image, me running through the hall, filmed from ahead. I was seeing myself from the perspective of the exit I was running toward. I stopped. On the monitors, my image stopped running and stood in place. Exactly synchronized. I turned around. The monitors updated, now showing me from behind. The figure was in the corridor entrance behind me, 50 feet away, standing motionless, watching. I could see them clearly now, the distance and lighting finally adequate. They were wearing my uniform, they had my build, they were me. The figure raised their right hand and pointed toward the control room stairs. A gesture of direction, indicating I should return. I ran for the exit instead, slamming through the doors into the night air. The street outside was empty, streetlights casting orange pools across wet pavement. I kept running, reaching my car in the staff parking lot, fumbling with keys, starting the engine with shaking hands. I drove home. I didn't look back. I called in sick for the next week. When I returned to work, the incident report from that night had been filed by someone else, supposedly by me. The report stated routine shift, no incidents, equipment functioning normally. My signature was at the bottom. I hadn't written it. The other analysts I spoke with, Janet and Kevin, had no knowledge of anything unusual on December 4th. The equipment log showed no anomalies, no camera malfunctions, no feed disruptions. I requested the archived footage from that night. The request was denied. System administrator privileges required. I submitted the proper paperwork. 2 weeks later, I was informed the footage had been automatically deleted per retention policies. But camera 12's feed had changed. Subtly. The angle was slightly different, tilted a few degrees higher than before. I compared it to archived images from weeks prior. The perspective had shifted, as if someone had physically adjusted the camera mounting. And occasionally, not regularly, but often enough that I've learned to expect it, I see a figure in camera 12's feed. Standing at the far edge of the platform, facing away, motionless. The figure appears for exactly 5 seconds, then vanishes. Always at 9:47:23 p.m., always in the same position. I've stopped filing reports about it. I've also noticed something else. When I watch camera 12's feed during those 5 seconds when the figure appears, I can see the platform's glass barrier in the background. And reflected in that glass, the control room, my desk, my monitors, and me, sitting in my chair, watching. But the reflection shows me from an angle the glass couldn't produce. The perspective is wrong. The reflected control room is too detailed, too clear. It's not a reflection, it's a window. Camera 12 isn't just recording platform 6. It's recording 2 spaces simultaneously, superimposed, showing me both the platform below and the room I'm sitting in. Sometimes in that 5-second window, the figure in the reflection turns around, and I can see their face clearly. It's my face, staring back at me through the screen, through the glass, through whatever barrier separates the space the camera sees from the space I occupy. I have 4 months remaining on my contract. I've been looking for other employment, but every application I submit receives the same response. Position filled. Every interview I schedule gets canceled. Every opportunity evaporates. The station wants me in this chair watching these screens. It needs someone to observe what camera 12 is recording. And I'm starting to understand that what I'm watching isn't surveillance footage, it's documentation. The camera is recording the moment I cross over, the moment I move from this side of the screen to the other. Some monitoring systems don't just watch what is, they watch what's becoming, what's about to transition. And some feeds loop not because they're broken, but because they're waiting for the observer to realize they're not watching events from the outside. They're watching their own arrival into the frame. Camera 12 shows platform 6, but eventually I know it will show me walking onto that platform, standing in the same position as the figure I've been watching. And when that happens, someone else will be sitting in this control room watching the feed, seeing me frozen in those 5-second loops, wondering why I won't move. The camera is patient. The loop continues. And every night at 9:47:23, I check camera 12, watching myself get closer. Story 7, the timetable that wrote itself. The dispatch terminal began printing at 1:09 a.m., a sound I knew was impossible because we'd switched to digital-only systems 3 years ago. The old dot matrix printer in the corner, disconnected and stripped for parts, rattled to life, feeding paper through mechanisms that no longer had ribbons or power. The timetable that emerged showed routes I didn't recognize. Line G to Riverside Memorial, Line K through the old Central Yards, Line M terminating at Ashford Station. Stations that had been demolished in 1987, lines that were abandoned before I was born. Each entry marked dispatch required in the status column. And at the bottom of the page, a note in typewriter font. Operator, M. Hayes. Authorization mandatory. Failure to dispatch will result in network integrity failure and containment breach. Acknowledge within 20 minutes or system will auto-approve. My name, my authorization code, for trains that couldn't exist, traveling to stations that had been raised decades ago. I checked the digital system. Nothing. I checked the regional network. Nothing. But the printer continued, page after page, each timetable showing the same routes, each timestamp counting down. 18 minutes remaining. 17 minutes. The office door locked with a heavy magnetic thunk I didn't trigger. The windows went dark. And somewhere deep in the station, far below the active tracks, I heard brakes screeching. Steel on steel, the unmistakable sound of a train stopping at a platform that no longer existed. I have served as scheduling and dispatch officer for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 17 years. The position requires comprehensive knowledge of network operations, route management, timing coordination, maintenance scheduling, and emergency protocol implementation. My primary responsibility is ensuring the last trains of each operational night depart on schedule, arrive at their termini without incident, and that all rolling stock is properly logged and secured before the maintenance window begins. The dispatch center occupies a secure room on the administrative level of Riverside Central Station. The space is compact, approximately 15 by 20 feet. Lined with computer terminals, wall-mounted displays showing real-time network status, radio communication equipment, and filing cabinets containing operational documentation dating back to the system's founding in 1952. The older equipment remains in place for historical reference and backup redundancy, though most has been non-operational for years. In the corner sits a decommissioned dot matrix printer from the 1980s, used historically to generate paper timetables before the system digitized in 2021. The printer has no ribbon, no power connection, and no functional purpose. It's a relic I've occasionally considered removing but never prioritized. My shift typically runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., though the critical period is between midnight and 2 a.m. when the final trains complete their routes and return to depot. After 2 a.m., the network enters maintenance mode, and my responsibilities shift to monitoring the locked system and ensuring no unauthorized access or equipment activation occurs. December 14th began normally. I arrived at 9:53 p.m., logged into the dispatch terminal, reviewed the evening's operational status, and confirmed all scheduled departures. The network was running smoothly. Minor delays on lines C and F, but nothing requiring intervention. By 1 a.m., the last revenue trains had completed service. The system was quiet. At 1:09 a.m., I heard a sound I recognized but couldn't immediately place. A mechanical rattling wave, followed by the distinctive high-pitched whine of a dot matrix printhead moving across a carriage. I turned toward the corner. The decommissioned printer was operating. Paper fed through the tractor mechanism, the printhead striking the page in rapid staccato bursts. The machine had no power connection, no ribbon, no logical means of function. Yet it printed, producing text in the characteristic broken line font of impact printing. I approached slowly. The page emerging showed formatted text: Metropolitan Transit Authority Emergency Timetable. Manual dispatch required, generated 12/14/2024, 010917. Below the header, a table. I stared at the printout. None of these lines existed in the current network. Line G had been discontinued in 1991. The old central yards were abandoned in 1979 and sealed in 1983. Ashford Terminal was demolished in 1987 to make way for commercial development. The printer continued, producing a second page. Operator assignment, M. Hayes authorization code. DX4071MH status, mandatory dispatch. Critical notice: failure to authorize departure of listed services will result in network integrity failure and containment breach. Routes are pre-approved under emergency protocol Sigma 7. Operator must acknowledge and dispatch within 20 minutes of timetable generation. Auto approval will engage at 012917 if manual acknowledgement not received. My name. My authorization code. For routes that couldn't exist. I checked the primary dispatch terminal. The digital system showed no pending departures, no emergency protocols, no automated scheduling. The network status displayed the maintenance mode, all lines suspended. I checked the regional coordination network. Same status across all connected stations. No emergency timetables, no Sigma 7 protocols. I'd never heard of Sigma 7. The printer generated a third page, this one containing a single block of text. Historical context. Operator eyes only. The routes listed above service discontinued, stations maintained under preservation protocol. 7G. These stations were not demolished. They were sealed following incidents classified under Transit Authority Internal Affairs Code 19 Black. Active suppression systems require periodic service verification. Dispatch of verification trains is mandatory to maintain containment integrity. Riverside Memorial sealed 06/14/1991 following Incident 47. Old Central Yards sealed 11/08/1983 following Incident 12. Ashford Terminal sealed 03/22/1987 following Incident 58. Failure to service these sites at designated intervals results in system degradation and potential containment breach. Last successful verification, 12/14/1989. Current operational window, 35 years overdue. I read the page 3 times. The printer fell silent. The room's overhead fluorescent lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. I went to the filing cabinets and searched for any reference to Sigma 7, Preservation Protocol, or Code 19 Black. The files contained standard operational documentation, timetables, personnel records, equipment inventories, but nothing matching the terms from the printout. I tried the radio contacting the night supervisor. No response. I dialed the supervisor's office extension. The line rang endlessly, unanswered. I checked my watch. 1:17 a.m. 12 minutes had elapsed since the timetable printed. 8 minutes remaining until auto approval. I returned to the dispatch terminal and searched the system archives for historical route data. Line G appeared in records through 1991, servicing Riverside Memorial Station until June 14, 1991, when it was listed as discontinued, station decommissioned. No explanation for the decommissioning. Line K showed similar termination in November 1983. Line M ended in March 1987. Each discontinuation was abrupt, mid-service, with no transition period or public announcement archived in the system. I pulled up the network map. Riverside Central's track layout showed 12 active platforms and extensive tunnels connecting to the broader system. But the historical overlay, accessible through the archive view, revealed older infrastructure, Platform 13, sealed in 1989. Line extensions running north and east, terminating at points no longer marked on modern maps. I zoomed in on those termini. Faint labels appeared. Riverside Memorial, sealed. Ashford Terminal, sealed. Old Central Yards, sealed. The infrastructure still existed. The tracks were still there, running through tunnels that current documentation ignored. My watch showed 1:23 a.m., 6 minutes to auto approval. The office door's magnetic lock engaged with a heavy thunk. I hadn't touched the controls. I tried the handle. Locked. I entered my override code on the keypad. Access denied. The window's reinforced glass panels overlooking the station's main hall went dark. Not the darkness of night, but complete opacity, as if something had covered them from outside. The dispatch terminal screen changed, all active displays blanked, replaced by a single message. Manual acknowledgement required. Enter authorization code to dispatch emergency services. Failure to comply will result in auto approval and system override. A cursor blinked below the message, waiting for input. I heard a sound from below, deep, resonant, echoing through the building's structure. Steel on steel, brakes engaging. The unmistakable sound of a train stopping at a platform. But the network was in maintenance mode. No trains were running. I went to the wall-mounted status board. The digital display showed all lines suspended. But as I watched, new lines appeared on the board. Line G, departing platform 13. 0130, line K, departing platform 13. 0135, line M, departing platform 13. 0140. Platform 13, the sealed platform, the one closed since the collapse in 1989. The cursor continued blinking on the dispatch terminal. 4 minutes remaining. I searched the desk drawers for any documentation, any explanation. In the bottom drawer, beneath stacks of old route maps, I found a sealed envelope. The envelope was labeled, Dispatch Officer Eyes Only, Emergency Protocol Sigma 7. The seal was unbroken. I tore it open. Inside, a single page of typewritten text. 2. Dispatch Officer, Riverside Central Station. From Transit Authority Internal Affairs Division. Date, December 14th, 1989. RE, Emergency Protocol Sigma 7 Implementation. This protocol activates automatically at 35-year intervals following initial implementation. The dispatch officer on duty during activation window is required to authorize verification train departures to sealed stations. Context. Certain stations within the network were sealed not due to structural failure, but to contain incidents that could not be publicly disclosed. These sites remain active in a maintenance-only capacity. Verification trains ensure containment systems remain functional. Procedure. When prompted, enter your authorization code to dispatch trains on lines G, K, and M. Trains will depart platform 13 unmanned. traveling to sealed stations and returning to depot automatically. Do not attempt to board these trains. Do not attempt to access Platform 13 during dispatch window. Failure protocol. If manual authorization is not provided within 20 minutes, the system will auto-approve dispatch. However, auto-approval disengages operator safety lockouts. The dispatch center will unseal during train operations, and the officer may be exposed to secondary containment failure. Post-dispatch. Following successful dispatch, all documentation related to this protocol will be automatically removed from your awareness. You will retain no memory of this event. This is a protective measure. Acknowledge receipt. The signature line was unsigned. The date was December 14th, 1989, exactly 35 years ago. I looked at my watch, 1:27 a.m., 2 minutes remaining. The terminal cursor blinked insistently. The sounds from below grew louder, not one train, but multiple. Engines idling, doors opening and closing, announcements echoing through corridors that shouldn't exist. Now boarding line G to Riverside Memorial, verification service, stand clear of closing doors. I heard footsteps in the corridor outside the locked door, multiple sets, rhythmic, approaching, 1 minute remaining. I made a decision I still question. I approached the terminal and entered my authorization code, DX4471MH. The screen flashed, authorization accepted, dispatching emergency services. The status board updated. Line G departed platform 130129, line K departed platform 130134, line M departed platform 130139. The sounds below ceased. The footsteps in the corridor stopped. The door's magnetic lock disengaged with a soft click. The lights returned to normal. The windows cleared. The dispatch terminal reverted to its standard maintenance mode display. I stood in the center of the room, breathing rapidly, trying to process what had occurred. The dot matrix printer activated again, producing a final page. Dispatch confirmation verification services successfully deployed. Next scheduled verification December 14, 2059. Protocol Sigma 7 suspended until next cycle. Thank you for your service, Officer Hayes. The page finished printing. The printer fell silent, permanently silent. When I checked later, I found it had no functional components remaining, just a hollow shell. I unlocked the door manually and stepped into the corridor. Empty. Normal. The station was quiet. I returned to my station and completed the shift. At 6:00 a.m., I filed my standard report, routine night. No incidents. I never mentioned the timetables or the printer or the sealed stations, but I started researching. Historical records, archived newspapers, incident reports. I found references to the 3 stations mentioned in the timetable. Riverside Memorial Station was closed in June 1991 after multiple passengers reported temporal distortions and impossible spaces in the station's lower levels. The official explanation was structural concerns. Old central yards were sealed in 1983 after maintenance crews refused to enter, citing presences and non-linear track layouts that caused disorientation. Official explanation: environmental contamination. Ashford Terminal closed in 1987 following an incident where a train arrived 43 minutes before its scheduled departure time, carrying passengers who insisted they'd been traveling for hours. Official explanation: scheduling error and mass hysteria. Each incident occurred on December 14th of their respective years. Today is December 15th, 2024. My shift last night is fragmenting in my memory. I remember the timetables, but the details are becoming hazy, indistinct, as if viewed through fogged glass. I wrote these notes immediately after the event to preserve the account, but I can feel the memory slipping, reorganizing itself into something more acceptable. By tomorrow, I suspect I'll remember last night as a routine shift. No printer, no emergency protocols, no trains to sealed stations, but I know what I saw, I know what I authorized. 3 trains departing to stations that don't officially exist, carrying no passengers, traveling through tunnels that aren't on maps, serving some purpose the transit authorities sealed into documents that erase themselves from awareness. And I know that in 35 years, on December 14th, 2059, another dispatch officer will sit in this room and hear a dot matrix printer activate at 1:09 a.m., generating a timetable for routes that can't exist, requesting authorization to send verification trains into the sealed parts of the network where something waits in stations we pretended to demolish but actually just locked away. Some schedules run deeper than the published timetables. Some trains serve routes that exist in the gaps between infrastructure and history. And some stations never close. They just stop appearing on maps maintained by automated systems and forgotten protocols, waiting for their 35-year verification window when someone has to remember they're still there. The network is larger than the public knows. Some of it operates in maintenance mode indefinitely, staffed by trains that run without drivers, serving platforms no one is meant to see. I dispatched those trains. I authorized their departure. And somewhere beneath the city, they're completing their routes, verifying containment systems, ensuring that whatever we sealed in those stations stays sealed, at least for another 35 years. After that, it's someone else's shift.